Taryn. My name is Eileen Mock and I'm the chair of Restorative Justice Victoria. My pronouns are she and her, and it's my very great pleasure to welcome you to our second Pants Optional Virtual AGM. Before I proceed, I would like to humbly acknowledge that our organization works across unceded Coast Salish territory and give thanks to the communities and nations in whose territories we work, the Lekwungen and Wasangan peoples. However, as we gather tonight, the day after Indigenous Peoples Day, and as we're collectively mourning the 215 children found in Kamloops, I am mindful of how woefully inadequate these words are. We at RJV are continuing to learn how to honor the land upon which we live and work and are committed to doing so. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight and taking time out of your evening to support Restorative Justice Victoria and engaging in yet another Zoom meeting. I'm sure you're all very familiar with Zoom by now, but we do have a couple little pointers for tonight that Taryn had posted on the opening slide. But just as a few quick reminders, first, if you can please update the name that shows up on your window, that will help us know who's attending. And this is for member numbers and also for voting purposes. I know sometimes on the phone it might be a little difficult to do that. So if you're not able to do that, maybe just put that in the chat if we don't have your name there. In order to see a full screen of the current speaker, pardon me, click speaker view at the top right of your Zoom screen. And for more streamlined view, you can click on the hide non-video participants button. You can choose to leave your video on or off during the meeting, which is usually at the bottom left of your Zoom screen. We will be recording the meeting, so if you don't want to have your face potentially in the recording, then you can turn your video off. Everyone, as you know, starts off muted, and if you want to ask a question, just unmute yourself quickly at the bottom left of your Zoom screen, and then remute yourself when you're finished. Please use the chat function, which we've all been doing to talk about the Habs game and whatnot, if you want to ask a question of the speaker without interrupting. And for tech assistance, as Taryn mentioned, please message Taryn or Tynan directly. We have 4 motions to approve this evening, and we'll be using polls to do that. Please only affirm and vote on motions if you're an active member. This means you've paid for membership during registration or you're an active volunteer. How that's going to work is we'll ask for a first and a second to affirm the motions. Please unmute yourself and state your full name along with your first or second, and so we can record this for the minutes. The poll will then appear on the screen when we're ready to vote, and you can just disregard this if you're not a member, meaning you won't pick any of the options. Are there any questions about any of that? Okay, great. I can't see everybody in this format, but I know from the attendance list that we have a number of old friends and supporters with us, and it's lovely to see so many people I do recognize. Thank you all for coming back to the AGM, and thank you so much for your continued support of RJV. For those of you who are joining us at the first AGM, welcome. I hope that this gives you a good overview of our organization and the work that we do. Although she's unable to join us on the Zoom meeting tonight, we are very pleased to share a message from the Mayor of Victoria, Lisa Helps, and Taryn is going to share a little video of that right now.
Hello everyone, I'm Mayor Lisa Helps, the Mayor of Victoria. I'm speaking to you today from Lekwungen territory, the homelands of the Songhees and the Esquimalt nations. It is a real privilege for me to be asked for a second year in a row to bring you greetings on this really important day of your annual general meeting. The City of Victoria has been a funder of the Restorative Justice Society for many years, originally through VicPD and now directly through our city budget. And this has been really useful to move the funding from VicPD into the city, because it means that not only the police board, but City Council gets to hear directly from your executive director about all of the important work you're doing in our community. When Jillian came and spoke with Council earlier this year, it wasn't a typical presentation. It wasn't 10 minutes and off you go, thanks very much. Council was really, really interested and engaged in the work of restorative justice and the important work you're doing. There were lots of questions, ideas, thoughts, and questions from Council about how we can further and more deeply support your work. I am a big fan of restorative justice, Victoria, and have been for many years, because I see the work that you do builds connections. It builds healing in our community, and it brings people together in what is unfortunately a very old-fashioned circumstance of sitting together in a circle and really listening to each other's perspectives. And so restorative justice isn't only important for the victims and the perpetrators of crime, it's also important as a model for how we talk with each other, how we engage with each other through and in really difficult circumstances. And in this era of tweets and Instagram and Facebook, where people can say anything kind of without consequence and sometimes without thought, I think the work of restorative justice is really important, because when people come together in those sessions, obviously they're dealing with a particular instance, with a crime that's been committed by them or against them. But also importantly, they're learning those tools of dialogue in difficult circumstances. And so I just wanted to take the time to recognize that what you do is important in and of itself, but also in terms of that skill of dialogue, which is much needed in our community right now to solve complex problems. So again, congratulations on your annual general meeting, and thank you so very much on behalf of myself and council for all the really important work you do in our community.
Fantastic. Thank you, Taryn, and thank you so much to Mayor Helps for that very thoughtful greeting to start us off in our meeting. We're very grateful to the Mayor and Council for their continued and enthusiastic support. And I'd also like to acknowledge our other municipal partner, the Township of Esquimalt, and extend a warm welcome to Jacob Helliwell, Deputy Mayor of the Township of Esquimalt, who is with us here tonight. Jacob, could you give us a little wave? There you are. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having me join you this evening, and also just like to extend our appreciation and support from Esquimalt. Thank you very much.
That's great. Thank you very much. And on behalf of RJV, please pass on our thanks and our appreciation for your support to Mayor Desjardins and your colleagues on council. We usually have our AGM sometime earlier in the spring, but last year, because everything was so up in the air because of COVID, we postponed it to last October. So it has been less than a year since our last AGM, but we still have lots to cover, as we're covering all of 2020 and a little bit of this year as well. At last year's AGM, I reported that, like so many organizations, we had to pivot really quickly to a new way of delivering our services while keeping everyone safe. That, of course, is very challenging, shifting from primarily in-person to online delivery of services. And although we've definitely found our groove, it does present an enormous burden, particularly on the administrative front. So we're very much looking forward to getting back to our normal operations in the foreseeable future. Another one of our big challenges during the pandemic has been adapting our fundraising strategy. And last year, instead of our annual in-person big shoe-themed gala, which is a lot of fun, we had an online fundraiser, and we raised about $3,000. So thank you so much to everyone who contributed to that. We know that there were many, many worthy causes you could have contributed to, especially during the pandemic, and we appreciate every dollar. Although larger in-person gatherings may be possible in the fall, there's still a lot of challenges and uncertainty of planning that kind of event. So our main fundraising event will be, again, online this year. We also have another few other mini fundraiser plans in the coming months. So please stay tuned with the details on those. And I hope you will help spread the word because we do have some extra expenses this year, including the costs related to moving to our new office space. Yes, if you haven't already heard or got in on the early chat, we are moving to bigger premises very soon on July 7th. We've grown a lot since we first moved into the Lee Avenue office, and we're very excited to be moving into our shiny new office space that will have room for everybody. And we won't be going far, so it'll still be very familiar. In fact, we're just right across the hallway in the same building. I would like to thank Fraser Campbell of Campbell Commercial Group for facilitating this transition so easily for us and being so supportive of our work over many years. We look forward to hosting an open house in our new space whenever it's safe to do so. I'm extremely proud of our wonderful staff, and I'd like to take a few moments to introduce them to you now. I'm sure all of you recognize Jillian Lindquist. our phenomenal executive director, who will deliver our case report tonight. Taryn Berger, of course, is our fabulous program and volunteer manager, and she will be delivering the volunteer report tonight. We have 3 outstanding complex case workers, Jessica Rourke. If you can give us a wave, that's good. Carol Larson. Carol, Siri may not be able to see them. And Lane Foster. There we go. Hi, Lane. And a shout out to Julie Cormier, who will be reporting on the Girls Circle project. And she'll also tell us about another exciting school space project that we're undertaking thanks to a grant from the Harborside Rotary Club. And Tynan Brower, who is providing some technical support tonight. Also, I'd like to extend a very special welcome to the newest addition to our team, Phoebe Chi, who is our brand new casework and program assistant. Phoebe recently finished their degree in gender, race, sexuality, and social justice at UBC and brings a wealth of skills and experience from the nonprofit sector. Unfortunately, Phoebe was unable to join us tonight, but I'm sure you'll have a chance to meet them soon. The full agenda was sent out earlier, but I just want to do a quick recap. So our program tonight will basically have 3 parts. First are the staff reports, and then we'll deal with some society business, including approving the financial report, a special resolution to amend our bylaws, and voting for the board. After that, we'll take a short break before welcoming our very special guest, Alan Wade. Just before we get to the reports, though, we have a really quick item of business to take care of, which is to approve the minutes from last year's AGM. I believe everyone was sent a link, and hopefully you've had a chance to review. If not, please take a few moments to read now. Are there any amendments? Oh. My apologies, Alan, for my error. Sorry about that. Okay, could I have a motion to approve the minutes? And again, if you could unmute yourself to say your name. Anyone?
So moved, Darlene.
Thank you.
Enlightenment second.
Sorry, were both of you at last year's AGM? Jason, you were. Darlene?
Yep, I was.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay, and Taryn, I think we have a poll.
Yeah, I'll launch that. So please just ignore the poll if you're not a member, and please do vote if you are a member. Again, that's if you paid for a membership or you are a volunteer with us.
Okay. Okay, Taryn, are we good for the minutes? Great. Okay. Oh wait, we can move on to the reports. So I will pass it over to Jillian.
All right. Hello, everyone. It's a real pleasure to, again, these years, they keep flipping. Okay. Here we are again. It's a great pleasure to be here this evening to provide you with a summary of our casework in 2020. So I have a PowerPoint presentation that I'm going to go through. So I'm just going to share my screen here. All right. Everybody can see that? Okay. All right, so yeah, as Aline sort of mentioned, 2020 was quite the year. So I will be speaking about the calendar year 2020, so January to December. And you know, like most organizations, it was a real shock for us to you know, in March to come to the understanding of the magnitude of what was happening across the world. And that we were working, doing restorative justice in the context of a global pandemic. We had to respond really quickly, and as an organization that has really prioritized working with clients in a relational way, working on presence and being with people in a good way, and using circles, which, as many people know, have a specific resonance and feel to them, having to shift and not only develop all the technical capacity, but other capacity to do restorative justice work remotely. And it was a really steep learning curve, and it was a struggle. I was so grateful for the team and the board and our amazing volunteers and community partners to work through that. So I wanted tonight to, run through some statistics with you, give you a sense of sort of big picture stuff, give you a sense of how clients are experiencing our work, and tell you a few stories along the way, so you can get a sense of what it might look like for somebody to be going through restorative justice with our organization. So in terms of some statistics, last year we received a total of 59 referrals, and I went back and checked, and that's the least number of referrals we've received since 2008. So it was a low year for our case count. And I know I heard from restorative justice programs throughout BC, that was a very common thing, that when COVID hit, referral numbers really dropped. There was, I think, less calls to police. Don't quote me on that, Jason, if I'm wrong, and Mark. But yeah, less calls to police, and then also the justice system was also responding to the pandemic, and so maybe things were being processed in the same way, and so our referrals were down. But as you'll see as we go along, actually our caseload continues to shift from being cases that require a lot more resources. So, and then of course we were trying to figure out how to use Zoom, DocuSign, and do everything else. So although we had less cases, we did not feel any less busy. If anything, we felt really stretched throughout the year, and we're trying to constantly sort of catch our breath and adapt and continue to show up in a good way for our clients in the midst of all of this. So the total number of offenses or harms that we were referred were 73, and the difference in those numbers is that some of the cases that are referred to us have multiple offenses or harms associated with them. We worked with, we were referred a total of 60 responsible parties. You'll hear me and probably others tonight sort of using the term responsible party or offender and affected party or victim sort of interchangeably. When we're doing restorative justice processes, within our work, we refer to the person who's committed the harm as the responsible party, and the person who's been affected by that, which is often the victim, the affected party. And so 60 responsible party and 65 affected parties. So in terms of our referral sources, 53% of the cases that we received last year came from the Victoria Police Department. Historically, the Victoria Police has been our most common referral source, and that continues on. One of the things that we've noticed over the years is that as our caseload tends to involve more serious offenses, we are getting more of our referrals a bit farther down the criminal justice system line. So even if police are initiating a referral, meaning that when they're investigating the file, they believe restorative justice would be a good fit for the case, because the offense is more serious, what they'll actually do is make a recommendation to Crown or even the judiciary to consider restorative justice. So just because a referral came from the Crown, for example, it doesn't mean that it wasn't initiated by the police or that the police didn't have a role in that file making its way to restorative justice. But yeah, so 53% of our referrals last year came from police, 36% from Crown, and then 3% from probation. And those are actually judge-made referrals. So those are instances when the judge when sentencing a matter makes restorative justice part of the sentence, but that the referral comes to us through the probation office. And then 8% of the cases that we dealt with last year are what we call inquiries. So these are situations where Crown, police, victims, offenders, community organizations serving clients in the community reach out to us with an interest in restorative justice. And we support them in exploring that. It doesn't actually go forward to a case necessarily. In some instances it might. But we track those because as restorative justice becomes better known in the community, what we're finding is that we're getting more inquiries from the public seeking information and support around restorative justice. So in addition to providing information about what restorative justice might have to offer, in those situations, we're also supporting and exploring other options and also helping access resources in the community. So in terms of the types of offenses or harms we dealt with last year, I know there's a lot going on here. I'll walk you through it a little bit. So one of the interesting things about 2020, and I think this will probably be, confidence will be the trend going forward, is this is the first year that theft or shoplifting was not the most common case we dealt with. And that has in the history of our organization always been the case. And this reflects the trend that we're experiencing right now, where more and more of the cases that are being referred to restorative justice are more serious and in many instances involve violence or other types of serious harm. So last year, the most common offense that we referred was assault, and we received 15 cases, and then 12 related to theft 5,000 or under. A lot of those are associated with shoplifting, but can be related to other forms of theft in the community. 7 regarding mischief and uttering threats, 4 for fraud under 5,000, 3 for break and enter, and then 2 for robbery, assault causing bodily harm, assault with a weapon, identity fraud, impersonating a police officer, and sexual assault. And then all of the offenses or harms on the right side are single-digit referrals. So those related to aggravated assault, resisting or obstructing, dangerous driving causing bodily harm, extortion, luring a child by a computer, child pornography, possession and access, mischief and mischief over 5,000, publication of an intimate image without consent, secretly observing or recording nudity, taking an auto without consent over 5,000, firearm pointing, and fear of injury, damage to property. So as you can see, it's a pretty wide range of harms and wrongdoings that we are working to address in the community, and this is common from year to year. Although our caseload is shifting a little bit, it's very common for us to be working on a really wide range of harms. In terms of one of the things that we've started to track in the number of years, I would say it was about 3 or 4 years ago, we started to notice that we were getting cases that we were finding were much more complex and were requiring a lot more capacity, knowledge, and organizational resources. So in response to that, we started to sort of track some things that would help us understand, like, what is going on here? Why are we noticing this shift? What are our clients dealing with? What are the circumstances under which these cases are more challenging? And so we sort of break it up into 2 categories, cases that are complex or that involve serious offenses or harms. And so in terms of 2020, there were 61% of our cases that we classified as complex. And what we identify as complex is some combination of clients who experience, and this could be for the victim, the offender, or both, experience mental health, trauma, substance use, poverty, homelessness, or complex relational dynamics that are impacting the case. So they're showing up in the circumstances in a significant enough way that they're impacting the case. And so the most common complexity that we dealt with in 2020 were complex relational dynamics. So these are situations where, for example, it might be an offense that occurred within the context of a family, and there's complexities within the family, or it might be with neighbors who had ongoing dispute, or in workplaces with ongoing conflict, where we're dealing with not only the offense, but there's also all of this context around the offense and the harm that is impacting the case. And those can be very challenging situations to work through. And then 37% of the 61 were in relation to trauma and mental health challenges being experienced by clients. And then there's other things, but those are the most common that showed up in our casework in 2020. And then in terms of the serious offenses and harms, we classify those as violence, threats of violence, or cases that are sexualized in nature. So in 2020, 49% of our cases fell into those categories. So I'll just run through a little bit of client demographics, and just so you know, a lot of this information is going to be in our annual report. And in addition to the demographics that I'm going to describe, we also track things like gender identity, ethnicity. There's a number of other things that all of that will be included in the annual report, and Taryn's going to send that out shortly here. It'll have a lot more information, not just about our casework and our clients, but our organization as a whole. So yeah, there will be more, but I'm going to touch on a couple of things. So In terms of age for affected parties and for responsible parties, the most common age bracket that we're working with is 26 to 64. And then secondary to that for both is 18 to 25-year-olds, and then youth. And then as it relates to affected parties, we are dealing with and continue to work with a small number of children under the age of 12. And then this piece here is in relation to client neighborhoods. So these are the communities where our clients report residing. So in 2020, most of our clients, 47% were residents of Victoria, 25% Saanich, and then the next highest number was 9% for Esquimalt and View Royal. And then there were some other neighboring communities as well, with smaller numbers. So in terms of the cases that were referred to our organization, 20 of them did not proceed. So in these instances, the file did not go forward to a restorative justice process. And there's a number of reasons why that can happen. And this graph reflects what happened in 2020. The most common reason is that we're unable to contact the responsible party or the person who committed the offense. When the file is referred to us, we make our best effort. We call, we reach out to contacts, we'll send letters in the mail, but if we're unable to make that contact, we're unable to proceed. The next common one is other, and these are just unique circumstances that would take too much space on the graph to try and describe, but other unique circumstances under which we're not able to proceed. Sometimes clients don't consent, or we lose contact with somebody, inquiries that do not result in a referral, as I talked about a little bit earlier. And then in some rare instances, the file does go back into the criminal justice system for some reason. And then in terms of cases that did proceed to a restorative justice process, 9 of those are ongoing, they're in progress. 30 are completed, so that's intake and assessment, preparation, dialogue, and then whatever commitments the offender has made to the victim and others who've been affected by their actions and themselves. So 30 completed, and we didn't, again, in this year have any cases in which a responsible person did not thus far complete the commitments they've made to others. So this year, I usually at this time read you a bunch of quotes, but this year I was like, I'm going to tell a couple stories. So I just thought, you know what, sometimes it can be nice to hear about sort of a story from a case from beginning to end. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, one, because I don't have time, and two, because I want to protect the confidentiality and anonymity of our clients, but I'm just going to speak a little bit about a few cases that went through restorative justice. So the first case I'm going to speak about was in relation to a cisgender adult male had gone into a business and made, intoxicated, and made some very inappropriate racialized comments to a staff member that was supporting him. Things became escalated. The responsible person continued to act inappropriately, and then before leaving the business spit on the staff member a number of times. So that file was referred to restorative justice. We worked with both of the clients individually for a period of time. There were a number of needs that they both had, in particular the victim, who was very distressed about how he had been treated, and the offender had a number of mental health and other related issues that he was not well supported on. So after quite a lot of prep, they met. Some of the outcomes of that case was that the responsible person, after the dialogue with the victim, met with their mentor to discuss what they'd experienced and the insights they had developed. This was important to the victim, that he go away and think about what the victim had said and how this had affected him and the commitments he was making going forward. And so he did that. The responsible person made a meaningful apology at the dialogue, which was a central need of the victim. And then the responsible person made commitments around engaging and maintaining supports around mental health, medical care, and ceasing the use of alcohol. So I'm just going to read you a quick quote from the victim that he provided at the end of the process. He said, the whole final meeting, so this is the dialogue that where he met with the offender, was most helpful, where everybody was willing to hear you out, and their willingness to understand the pain and suffering I had to go through was eye-opening for me. Definitely helped me to be more at ease. It's not easy to meet the person that assaulted you, but I had enough support to do so. So the next case that I'll tell you one more quick story, and then we'll talk about some stats. The next case that I want to tell you about is in relation to a mischief case, a damage to property. And in this instance, there was two adult cisgender males who had gotten into a conflict on the road, and they had, I'm just going to look at the chat and, oh, okay. I was like, is there something I need to know? Okay, thanks, Jess. They had got into a conflict on the road, and the offender had escalated his behavior to the point where he left his vehicle and used something in his vehicle to do quite a significant scratch and damage on the victim's vehicle, and also to continue to be incredibly aggressive verbally and otherwise, and cause quite a lot of fear in the part of the victim. And so in this instance, the victim chose not to meet with the offender. We always provide victims the opportunity to work directly or indirectly with the person who's harmed them. And so in this instance, they chose not to meet in person, but the victim was working quite closely with a mentor and other supports within the restorative justice process. And and some of the outcomes in that there was still a dialogue that the offender attended with others, and the outcomes in that case was a letter of apology to the victim, repayment for the cost of the damage done to his vehicle, attending a residential treatment program, and then engaging in individual and group counseling when he returned back to the community. And so when I just have to close that. When I closed the file, I emailed the victim, and he emailed me this back. He said, "Thanks for sharing this information with me. At the outset, I did not have much of an understanding of what the RJ process could accomplish. It's been an eye-opener for me in a very positive way. Please convey to the offender my acceptance of his sincere apology and wish him success on his personal journey. Thanks to you, my mentor, and the team. Much good has come from your efforts." So there is a lot going on this screen. I was doing my PowerPoint, and I was paying a lot of attention to my pie charts, and I ran out a bit of time. And so I just copied and pasted a page from the upcoming annual reports. This is a bit of a sneak peek on what you're going to get later on. But I'm going to walk through this, but it'll just give you a bit of a sense of some of the big picture stuff. So what are people going through restorative justice at RJV experiencing in terms of the process and outcomes? So this is in relation to victims, affected parties. So I want to start just by reading a couple of quotes. So one victim said, "It helped me to finally get closure to that traumatic event, gave me a chance to understand and talk with the other party, and gave me strength to face similar problems in the future." And then I can't read this bottom one because the little screen sharing thing is in the way, but you can have a read of that when you have a sec. And then in terms of some of the statistical outcomes, so victims, when they were asked, would you recommend restorative justice to someone else in a similar situation, is how the question is framed. 100% said absolutely. In terms of how satisfied they were with their experience, they gave around a 95% satisfaction response. And then just in terms of, we ask a whole bunch of different questions. We do evaluation after the dialogue and after the agreement is completed. So we ask a bunch of open questions and quantitative questions. And so there's just a few stats here from the quantitative questions. So victims felt that they were supported by staff and volunteers. They felt that they felt safe, and they agreed that the responsible party was held accountable for their actions within the process. And so this one's in relation to responsible parties. So again, I'll start with a couple of quotes. So one client said, "My view of the world has changed. I felt like I always had to be aware, fight or flight all the time, led to a lot of bad decisions. Now I look at the world like I'm not in danger. It has allowed me to analyze what I'm about to do and make decisions and not just react. I decided to go to school and participate in life. Before I was hiding from life. I look at people with a different eye." And then the other two quotes are around mentorship. I can't read the bottom one, but the one I can read says, "My mentor was very supportive and kind. She made all the difference and made what might have been punishing and shaming very cathartic and insightful." So for folks who don't know about our program, we really rely on a mentorship model, meaning that we provide offenders and victims mentors who are kind of, it's not the best name, but they're kind of guides, support people who accompany them through the process and really help them show up in a good way and stand on their own sacred ground around their needs and their hopes, and so that is an approach that we found really valuable. So in terms of responsible parties, 100% said they probably or absolutely would recommend restorative justice, and they gave a 95% satisfaction rate. And then, as you can see, agreed that RJ had helped address the factors that contributed to the offense, and they felt it helped address the harms that damage that resulted from their actions, and agreed that they felt supported by staff and volunteers throughout the process. So I just wanted to quickly talk about looking forward and give you a sense of where we're going. Our organization, along with many organizations that are doing work with the community and within the community, are looking at, and I can certainly say that we are, and in restorative justice, it's a very specific, there's a very specific need to work from an anti-racism and anti-oppression lens. And so that's a journey that we're on, and one that we will continue to be on, and will always be on, and have started to, we just finished working with the trainer, and are now exploring next steps around how do we deepen this work and our knowledge so that we can meaningfully serve all of our clients, everybody in the community. We're working on to better understand decolonizing restorative justice. We owe a great debt, in a way, I guess that might not be the right word, to Indigenous communities who have guided and shown us the way in so many regards, but at the same time, a colonial lens, and sometimes even a white supremacist lens, has seeped into restorative justice work, and we do really have some important work to do around decolonizing restorative justice. We're working with a student right now, a master's student, and are working to develop partnerships to provide restorative justice within housing facilities, as that's a site where there is those sites tend to be sites where there can be a lot of harm, and a really important need to do holistic, relational, and healing work that doesn't further isolate and marginalize people. And then also working on restorative justice in schools, and Julie's going to talk about that a little later. And then as an organization, we've been on this journey for many years, but continue to be on it in terms of increasing our capacity to work on serious harms, including sexualized violence. So these are some of the big picture goals and priorities that we have in our organization as it relates to casework currently. So that's it for me. I want to say thank you to everybody for listening, and I certainly want to just acknowledge all of our funders. Devin's going to a little bit later talk a bit about our funders, so you'll have a sense of who is funding this work. And as you probably know, restorative justice is not well supported by the government or big picture funders, and so we do really rely on the generosity of foundations and grants and members of the public to support this work. And so we just could not do what we're doing without that support, and funding is always a bit precarious. So we're incredibly grateful for the funding that we receive. And then also, of course, to our wonderful volunteers. Taryn's gonna tell you a lot more about them in a little bit here, but I just wanted to take a moment to extend my deep gratitude, and also to our really amazing community partners that we have great relationships with and continue to develop ongoing relationships with in the community, including our referral sources and the municipalities. So thank you so much. I'm going to pass it off now back to Aline, and I will stop sharing my screen.
Great. Thank you so much, Jillian. Again, just amazing, amazing work and stories. And thank you for sharing those. It really brings it home, I think, when you hear those personal accounts. So I will hand it off to Taryn to do her report.
All right. Oh, sorry, 1 second. All your faces disappeared, and I don't like that. There we go. Okay. I just want to check. I have my door open because it's very hot today. Is there too much background noise for anybody? Okay. Wonderful. All right, so hello. It's really lovely to get to see all of you tonight over Zoom. I really appreciate you all taking the time to come today and love seeing so many of our volunteers. So this report is for everybody, and I just want to say it's dedicated to you all our volunteers who have done so much amazing work this year and every year. So in 2020, we had about 60 volunteers filling 101 positions. So many people, when they first hear that stat, are quite impressed by the size of our volunteer base. And we really rely on our volunteers to do so much of the work we do at our organization. So it is positions that are all very needed. Many of our volunteers fill multiple roles, so some of our administrative volunteers are also scribes, and many of our caseworkers can also act in the community member role in the dialogue. At the end of 2020, we had 28 facilitators and mentors. We also call them caseworkers, 36 community members, 18 scribes, 9 board members, 6 administrative volunteers, 4 occasional volunteers, and 1 practicum student. We brought on 13 new volunteers, so 1 practicum student, 2 committee volunteers, and 10 caseworkers. This is a bit of a slower year in terms of bringing on new volunteers because we are very focused on pandemic operations, and some of our operations shifted in terms of the need for volunteers. So also want to thank all the people who are patiently waiting for us to do more training, because we really know that there's so many people interested in joining our organization. So more to come with that. And this number does not reflect our newest cohort in 2020 or 2021. I know many of you are here today, so I just want to say welcome to you as well. We still managed to do a lot of training this year. It was all entirely virtual, which was new for us, just like working through cases virtually. So I've listed 2 advanced caseworker trainings. I'm going to talk about them more in a second. We also had a training called Doing RJ Online, and this was a panelist discussion and Q&A session about best practices working in RJ online or over the phone virtually through the pandemic. We tried to do this as early as possible because moving into that work was very new for many and all of us, I think. And then we regularly do role plays, but this was one of the first times we've done a mock case role play. So we were able to dig into a more complex scenario and had several sessions where we worked through an abbreviated version of a case. This year, we delivered the 2nd and 3rd of our 6 trainings from our Complex Caseworker Project Grant. So the first was called The Art of the RJ Dialogue, and the second, Shame and Trauma in the RJ Context. So this training is considered our 2nd level of training after our initial caseworker training, and it's part of our Advanced Caseworker Certificate. It includes pre-readings, self-assessments, workshops, and role-play sessions. Okay, this seemed so long ago when I was putting together this PowerPoint that I almost forgot it happened in 2020 in person with actual people. But we did have a party in February of 2020. We hosted our New Year's party. We celebrated our fiscal New Year's so we could delay it into February. And it was at the Collective Wine Bar and Kitchen. And we had such a lovely evening with good food and good company. Right, I'm going to switch to talking now about our Haley Award. So this is our Volunteer Appreciation Award we give out every year. So Haley Davies began volunteering with RJV in late 2013. Towards the end of her training, she was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, and despite fighting it as best she could, she passed away in March 2015. RJV created this award to remember and honor Haley's tenacious spirit and recognize outstanding contributions to the restorative justice community. So you can see at the bottom what we're looking for in terms of nominations. And for the 2020 year, this award went to Joanne. Joanne, who is busily typing away our minutes in this very AGM, has been with us for over 10 years, since 2010. She holds so many commitments and positions here. She's our board secretary. She's a very dedicated caseworker. She's on our governance and operations committee, and she's our Vancouver Island Regional Restorative Justice Association representative. So we were so glad to be able to give her this award this year, and are very grateful for everything that she has done for RJV and continues to do. All right. So as the slide says, we truly would not be able to accomplish all that we do without our volunteers here. I know we always want to celebrate their efforts, but I do want to give a special shout out to all their creativity, flexibility, and willingness to learn in the past year, as we moved into all sorts of new ways of doing our work, and we moved really quickly. So it was very impressive to see everybody who came on board, ready to learn new things, ready to try new ways of doing restorative justice. And we wouldn't have been able to keep up with all our work during the pandemic without them. So I just want to say thank you for you all for staying on this wild ride with us this year. And I hope that you all are really proud of everything you've done, because we are. Okay. All right, back to you, Aline.
Thanks so much, Taryn. And I just want to echo all your words to thank our volunteers. They are, I think, the best. And you do so much for us. And especially this last year has been so challenging. Thank you so much. And we can't wait to have another party with you, hopefully as soon as we can. So look forward to that. And I will pass the next presentation on to Julie.
Thanks so much. Hi, everyone. It's definitely a pleasure to be able to come back in front of you all. I thought it was a year. I thought, oh my, a year has gone by way too fast and way too slow at the same time. What's going on? But yes, I'm really happy to be here to talk about Girls Circle Community Project, as well as talking about the new direction towards schools that Jillian has mentioned. So for those new attendees today, Girls Circle is a violence prevention program for cis and trans girls and non-binary youth between the ages of 9 and 18 who are experiencing mental health challenges and or impacts of violence. And to be honest, given the year that we've had dealing with a global pandemic, but also increasing impacts from the opioid crisis, the need for a violence prevention program for youth has never been more needed, especially a program that uses a relational model to learn, heal, and empower ourselves together. So at the last AGM, we were in the phase of outreaching to schools to be able to offer the program. We were successful in reaching 12 self-identified girls and non-binary youth between the ages of 11 and 14. So we created 2 groups of 6, which virtually is a perfect amount of folks to be talking to at one time and coordinating and so on. So the first group involves students from the Rock Heights Middle School, thanks to some collaborative work with their counselor, Mrs. Murphy. And the second group consisted of youth living across the Greater Victoria area. And actually some of these youth had not been able to attend school at all due to some compromising health issues, either of their own or family members. So the group became one of the only things they were doing in terms of other virtual gatherings or groups. So once the program was successfully converted to a virtual format, and if anyone wants to debrief on that, let me know. It is quite a process and very different. It's not really translating from in-person to virtual. It's really developing a new way of facilitating. So I'm always happy to talk about that if anyone is interested. And then also conducting intakes. So these 2 groups were meeting after school virtually for 1 hour per week for 12 weeks. So we started at the beginning of February and we went all the way to the end of April in 2021. So in terms of accessibility, not issues, but wanting to make the program as accessible as possible, first of all, it was offered at no cost. And this is thanks to our funders, the Island Savings Community Endowment, which is led by the First West Foundation, as well as the Rachel Davies Fund, which is held by the Victoria Foundation. Another point of accessibility is that all the participants received a supply kit so that everyone had all the materials that they needed for all the activities. There were lots of creative-based activities, but it also included some items to help reduce anxiety. So things like a fidget, a journal, a water bottle, and of course, a pair of headphones also, just to try to increase the level of privacy because everyone is joining in from their home space. So upon starting, each group created their own community agreement, which consisted of what is important to them when it comes to collaborating and working with others and how they wanted to be treated and how they committed to treating others as well. And I have to say it really proved this kind of program is predictable and ritualized. And I have to say, as a virtual format for the folks who joined in, it was essential really to deal with the stress and anxiety. So I could really witness folks really kind of coming down week after week, just understanding exactly how this session was going to be run. So I saw some really stressful faces move towards more confident faces to then trusting faces and really kind of a sense of community building. So I want to run through, the type of topics and activities that we did. And obviously the intake process is always so important because it really identified the topics and the activities that we did. So the weekly activities were really started by building ourselves up. So we did sessions focused on uncovering our strengths, tapping into our creativity, identifying our qualities. And then we were able to dive into some more tougher conversations, like talking about stress, talking about negative thoughts, and learning from each other how we're coping with that and how we can build self-affirmations. We then moved beyond ourselves and really focused and looked at contributing factors to this stress and to these negative thoughts. Because we are surrounded and always influenced. And I love this saying that you should never believe everything you think, because there are so many things impacting our thoughts. And so we really looked at untangling the impacts of the media, stereotypes, body image influences, all the while subverting these forces at the same time. So doing awesome things like designing alternative magazine covers, creating collective poems, and building vision boards with our dreams and aspirations. About the last 5 weeks, we're really focused on relationships. So really focusing on the dynamics between ourselves and other people. We shared common experiences about friendships, positive and negative. We rated social media platforms for our connectivity level that we experience with them. We also went into understanding differences between power with and power over when it comes to relationships and seeking balanced relationships. And we also explored stereotypes as a form of bullying. So really these sessions also proved an opportunity to really focus on and practice self-respect, as well as empathy and compassion as a way to disrupt a culture of violence that is really pervasive in our lives. So the outcomes, obviously, that is always the fun news. I was able to hear from the participants that most of them felt safe. They felt respected and listened to while in the sessions. And for myself, I really witnessed some growth points with each and every one of them when it came to expressing themselves freely without fear or censorship. Some really small risk-taking, like using your video or taking your audio on, just these little points of progress, but they were quite significant for a lot of them. And of course, there were some authentic connections that were built, and just amazing moments of supporting each other when someone would communicate a stress or a worry that was happening for them. And most of them built new friendships. Yay! Especially during a time of COVID and isolation. So even the one group, exchanged phone numbers at the last session in order to keep in touch. And those who were all coming from the same middle school, they built new relationships with folks that they hadn't really talked to at all. And of course, the most beautiful moment for me is witnessing the increased critical thinking abilities that each of these young people were able to tap into, and just an increased awareness of the social pressures and discrimination that they're really living and sometimes don't always have the words to really explain what is going on. Really coming together to critique these harms that are found in cultural messages that really reduce folks, especially girls, to their appearance or sex appeal, and rallying together to counter those harms. Obviously you can all see that is definitely my joy in life. And so here are a few quotes from them that they provided us during the exit survey. I learned that I'm not alone in my struggle and that people understand me. I learned that I'm able to be much more extroverted than I thought. I liked that Girls Circle was a safe space to share my opinion. I'm more confident, ! I learned a lot about my personality. I like the sense of community. I like the topics and the people. I find it a bit easier to talk to others now. I learned that I can talk to people better once I get to know them. So once again, I just want to say thank you to the funders who made this program possible. And obviously it's always funding based. So, when the next chunk of money can come through, then we can keep providing this program at no cost for young folks that are all around us and experiencing life in very many different ways. So, quick announcement about working in schools. So, again, with funding, because that's what makes nonprofits go round, the Harborside Rotary Club have generously granted us some funds to be able to build relationships with schools in Victoria and Esquimalt specifically. And this will allow us to really facilitate a referral process in order to bring restorative responses to the harms and conflicts that are happening in schools. Right now, we're kind of trying to get a head start, and we're connecting with schools right now to seek some interest, and potentially also kind of looking forward to see if we can plan for some meetings and potential trainings for the fall of September 2021. We've also been able to do some information gathering from other restorative justice school programs in BC and as well as in Toronto, just to get an understanding on the complexities of working with school-based harms and conflicts, because it is very complex. Sometimes a society within a society. So so I look forward to kind of weaving in those learned lessons into this process. And so over the summer, we'll be working on developing a referral guide and a pamphlet for the schools, and hope to be in conversations with at least 15 schools, and then working directly with at least 7 of them, and really working on facilitating referrals. So I just want to say in closing that if anyone is connected to a school, a teacher, a school-based counselor, principal, or district level staff, or partners even, and you'd like to connect me with someone, please feel free to. I will put in my email in the chat. So feel free to pass on my email, or connect me, or just say hi. So yeah, thanks so much for listening, everyone, and for being here. It was really nice to see all your faces.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Julie. That was just awesome to hear those stories. And I have no doubt that that experience will be with those participants forever and will be life-changing for many of them. Thank you so much for all of that. And we really look forward to how the new program is going to go and hearing about that at the next AGM. So thank you again. Next, I'm going to pass it off to Devin for our financial report.
All right, thanks, Aline. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Devin Arnold. I'm the treasurer for Restorative Justice Victoria. I'm also mindful of the fact that we're already past our break time and have a couple of items still on the agenda before that break. So I will endeavor to get through this as quickly as possible. I'll also say that the information from the financial report will be available in the annual report as well. So just bear with me for a second here while I share my screen. All right, hopefully it's up now. So for those of you who've been through one of these presentations before, you'll know that I put cute animals on the side for those people who aren't interested in the financials. And so if you're interested in accounting and the money side of things, feel free to follow along. If not, feel free to take 5 minutes and zone out and look at some cute puppies. So just a couple of quick highlights for the 2020 year. As everybody's spoken to so far, obviously there was a significant amount of change that occurred in response to COVID. On the financial side of things, we did see for last year an increase in our base funding for the Community Accountability Program. We were fortunate to receive some additional funding from civil forfeiture to manage or to increase and expand on our complex case manager hours. And lastly, we were very, very fortunate to receive some funding through the Victoria Foundation and the Emergency Community Support Fund to help kind of transition our operations to virtual service delivery and kind of everything that came out of those changes beginning last March. So just to go quickly through the funding sources, again, our funding largely breaks down on a couple of lines. So we get funding from the province and from the municipalities. Those are the ones coded in purple. So BC Gaming and Community Accountability Program are our base funding for the province. As Jillian mentioned, we receive very generous funding from the City of Victoria and Township of Esquimalt, as well as the Township of Oak Bay. In terms of more specific one-time funding, we receive those funds from civil forfeiture. We continue to receive a generous donation from the Sisters of St. Anne, as well as the Allergies Power Foundation, and those funds this year from the Victoria Foundation. Additionally, the government generously gave all nonprofits a temporary wage subsidy, which reduced our payroll expense there. And we did receive about $18,000 from training service revenue, as well as donations and fundraising. This puts us largely on track with our budget. There wasn't any major deviations from what we were expecting. The more interesting pie chart is just to show the breakdown between our core funding, one-time funding. So while we actually did quite well for this financial year, as Jillian alluded to, a lot of our funding does come from one-time sources. So as you'll see, 49% of our funding this year was from one-time, not necessarily renewable funding. So while we ended in a strong financial position, we're always making efforts to look at ways to stabilize our funding in the kind of longer term. As far as operating expenses, again, I'll leave most of this for the annual report for anyone who's interested, but just to show again that our operating expenses largely met what our budgeted amounts were. And in particular, just to show that, again, with an organization like RJV, we're small but mighty with what we do. And that's recognizing the fact that the vast majority of our operating expenses go towards staff salaries and wage costs. So for this year, it was 85% towards our staff who weren't compensated as well as they should be, but regardless. And then a further 9% for office expenses and 6% for general administrative expenses. So as I said, we did actually end up in a strong financial position for the year. We ended up with an $11,000 surplus, largely as a result of being quite conservative in the use of our funds because we just weren't sure starting back in March what to expect for the year ahead. And as a result of the surplus, we're in a strong financial position with our fund balance with almost $80,000 cash on hand. Typically, we aim as an organization for about 25% in our contingency just to cover potential shortfalls from funders who may not come through or other unanticipated expenses. We're sitting at about 30% right now for this year. So again, a strong position. Well, heading into 2021, even though we're halfway through now. As far as updates so far, we were fortunate to receive additional funding beyond the funding received last year from the Victoria Foundation that will allow us to continue on with supporting complex case management and allowed us to bring BB on board to support office administration. The surplus that we ended the year with will be used to help finance the office move. There's some renovation costs involved there, and obviously moving to a bigger space brings bigger lease costs. So that surplus will help offset those costs for the first year. As Julie just spoke to, we were fortunate to receive funding from a number of sources to support those school-based programs. And as I said, even though we ended in a strong financial position, we are constantly on the lookout for more stable and secure funding sources. A couple of those funds, in particular the Allergy Flower Foundation funding, runs out after the next financial year. So again, that's a longer term effort from the board and the staff. Again, just to quickly speak to the budget for this year, largely the same as last year. So I believe last year was about 245,000. We're just a little bit lower this year. And again, funding sources pretty much the same as we saw last year. And again, the expenses largely along the same lines as well. So I won't speak to anything in particular there, but if there's any follow-up questions or if you're looking for more information, you'll be able to find that in the annual report. So everyone else, as everyone else has said so far, I just again want to say thank you to our funders and our volunteers, as well as the individual donors and members of the community. Obviously, we wouldn't be able to do what we do without everyone's generous support, both at the provincial, municipal, granting agency, and individual donor level. So thank you again, and look forward to everything we'll accomplish in the year ahead.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Devin. I always love seeing the puppies, so thank you for that and for such a clear report, and also just for helping us stay on track and for having us in such good financial position. We really appreciate your expertise in this area. So I would like to have a motion to accept the financial report, unless anyone has some further questions for Devin.
I so move acceptance of the financial report.
I second that.
Thank you both.
I did get some comments or requests for cats next year. So Joanne, if you want to add that to the minutes, I will switch up puppies for
Okay. Will do.
I second that.
And this is the motion for the budget, not the cats.
Great, we're good to go. Super, thank you very much, everyone. Next, we have just a really quick motion. It's to approve this special resolution, which is an amendment to our bylaws. I think, or I hope everyone's had a chance to review that. It's pretty straightforward and self-explanatory. We just have a few sections of our bylaws that have gender-specific language. So we just want to amend that to remove that and have it gender neutral. So just to go ahead of that, since we're again a little bit short on time, the motion reads, whereas the Board of the Restorative Justice Society has considered the wording of the bylaws and recommends amendments to update the wording to be non-gender specific, be it resolved that sections 2.4 and 2.6 of the bylaws be amended as per the attachment. May I have a motion to accept the special resolution?
Jason Laidman will move.
Thank you.
Second.
Thanks, Allison. Super, thank you so much, everyone. So that's passed. Now we'll go on quickly to our board nominations. But before we do that, I just wanted to acknowledge one of our former board members who was in attendance tonight, Robert Ball. He's not only a former board member, but one of our founding members of RJV. And he and his partner, Jean, have been steadfast supporters of RJV for many years. So it's lovely to see you here tonight. Thank you. I'm happy to say that our board has been very stable over the past several years. And I'd like to thank all of my board colleagues for the continued dedication and service. All of the current board members are running again, with the exception of the lovely Melanie Wagner-Collins, who unfortunately has had to resign from the board due to some new commitments coming up for her. So we're very grateful for her contributions over the past couple of years and wish her all the best. Most of the nominees are here tonight, so I will call upon each candidate to introduce themselves very quickly. And for those who weren't able to attend, I'll just read a short bio on their behalf. And I'll start with the board executive, the positions of chair, vice chair, treasurer, and secretary. I'm putting my name forward again to stay on as chair. I have a legal background and currently work as a legal officer at the Office of the Conflict of Interest Commissioner of British Columbia. Prior to that, I was an ombudsperson officer and worked in private practice. I've been on the board since 2005. I can't believe it's that long, but it's gone fast. And I've been the chair since 2010. And I really, really love all the people in this organization and the work that we do. And I'd be honored to continue as your chair. And next, I'll pass it to Allison, who is on the position for vice chair.
Thank you, Aline. I am Allison Payne, and I'm a former CBC journalist, a communications executive, and former assistant deputy minister for the province of British Columbia. As an assistant deputy, I was able to set up the conflict management office for the BC Public Service, which offers conflict resolution for government employees. I am currently a mediator with that office, which is probably the work that I've enjoyed most out of all of that. I've been with RJ since 2010 and have a very strong belief in the work done by Restorative Justice Victoria, and I'm happy to stand again for vice chair.
Thank you, Allison. And our wonderful treasurer, Devin.
So again, my name is Devin. I'm a former accountant and current information systems professional. I think I'm the second longest serving member on the board now, having served since 2011. So I guess this would be the 10-year anniversary. And yeah, honored to put myself forward again for this term.
Thank you, Devin. And next, our wonderful secretary and volunteer of the year, Joanne Humans.
Hello, everyone. I think the bios were sent out, but just to give you a little bit, my background is in healthcare, both at the bedside and as an executive. I've worked with the Auditor General's office. I've had my own coaching practice. And as you know, I've been with RJ, I think, since about 2010 and have been on the board since 2013, maybe, or 14. So I'm glad to stay on and looking forward with another year of hard work.
Thank you, Joanne. And we have several directors at large. Justin Douglas, I believe you're on the call here.
I am. Hello, I am just multitasking in my kitchen. Don't judge me as I say hello to everyone. Thank you. Again, my background is in law and politics. I have an undergraduate degree from the University of Victoria in political science. I then went to McGill and double majored in common and civil law, and then worked in immigration and refugee law. But I took a step back and entertainment industry, but also as a documentarian. And I will take just a quick moment to plug my YouTube makers, where I recently did an interview with the most fabulous Jillian and Christiane Paris. And I will put a link to that interview where you can learn a little bit more about restorative justice in the chat. She did an amazing job, Jillian. And last thing I'll say, I've taken up a lot of your time, is I'm working on a documentary right now on the events at Berry Creek, and that will be out soon. Save the old growth forest. Okay, thanks, bye.
Thank you, Justin. Yes, and if you do have a chance to catch that interview, it was really great. So please do check out his link there. Next, we have April Lingaden.
Hi, everyone. I am a financial services professional. I have been in the industry for 20 years. I currently work as a part of a national team for CIBC Private Wealth Management in the role of Senior Practice Management Consultant for Western Canada. I hold an undergraduate degree in commerce. I have a master's degree in leadership, and most recently, like just in the last month, I completed my certified executive coaching program. I find coaching is about people and betterment. RJ is about people and betterment and repairing harms, and that aligns for me very much with my values, and would be passionately pleased to stand again for another year.
Super, thank you, April. Next, Naomi Gitterman.
Hi, everyone. I've been on the board for Restorative Justice since 2016. And my background, I have a bachelor in child and youth care. I've been a youth worker and a family service worker for some time. And I too, same as Justin, am taking a step back just to reevaluate and to realign. And my passion is 100% for restorative justice. It just embodies everything I believe in for humanity and for my integrity. And I just believe in the organization as a whole. I think it's wonderful and extremely motivating and inspiring. And I would love to be a part of RJ for years to come.
Fantastic. Thank you, Naomi. And our final nominee is Dawn Thiessen. I don't think she was able to make the call tonight. Dawn has been a board member since 2017. She's over 20 years experience working with children, youth, and families within clinical and residential treatment centers. Pardon me, healthcare settings, and a variety of multidisciplinary teams. The past 10 years, she's worked as a mental health therapist and currently works with VIHA. Could I have a motion to approve the slate of candidates as presented?
Feel free to count me in. It's
Yay,
Shanna.
Shanna. And a seconder?
Jason will second.
Thank you. Great. And then we'll go to our poll. Super, thank you so much. Many thanks to my board colleagues for their hard work and friendship over the last year. Like the staff and volunteers, we've also had to adapt to doing things remotely, but everyone's remained engaged and responsive. It's really a pleasure to work with everyone, and I look forward to another great year and to getting back to meetings in person. Again, thanks, congratulations to Joanne. This concludes the business portion of our AGM, so we'll take a short break, about 5 minutes, and then we'll come back with our guest speaker. Thanks, everyone. See you soon. Okay, think everyone's back, or mostly back. So just before I turn it over to Jillian to make her introductions to Alan, Joanne reminded me that I forgot in the flurry to get things sort of through that for the board nominations, we are also supposed to ask for nominations from the floor. So if there's anyone out there who wishes to stand for the board, make your wishes known now or forever hold your peace. All right. Hearing none, I'll just confirm with Joanne that we're good to proceed on that.
Oh, hi, everyone.
Oh, Tolu, are you going to stand? Yay!
Yes, I am.
Oh!
Yay!
Oh, that's wonderful. Okay.
Yeah, I know it's a surprise.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tolu Kolawole, and for about a year now, I've volunteered with the GO committee of the board, and it's been such an awesome experience working with Taryn, Ellen, and Joanne, and also Daisy. And I remember that Ellen mentioned that there's an opportunity to join the board, and I've been thinking about it. And I thought it would be really nice to throw in my hat. A bit of a background. I am from Nigeria. I moved to Canada in 2018 to do my master's in law at UVic. And I also worked as a lawyer in Nigeria, and I'm in the process of requalifying to practice here in Canada. Nice to meet you all.
Oh, that is fantastic. Thank you, Tolu. I put the request out to Tolu, and I'm so glad she's taken us up on that. She's just been fantastic to work on the committee. So I think maybe we need another vote for that. Taryn, is that something we can facilitate easily? Okay, so the motion is to just add Tolu to our slate of candidates. Could I have a motion to accept? I'll do that if I'm allowed.
Seconded, Justin Douglas.
Fabulous. Okay. Super. Welcome, Tolu. We look forward to working with you on the board now. Just before we sign off, just a few quick thank yous to everyone that brings us all together and makes our work possible. First, our funders and donors, of course, which we couldn't operate without that. Many thanks to Vic PD and Chief Delmanic and Deputy Chief, Jason Laidman, and our liaison officer, Sean Millard. Oak Bay PD and Chief Ray Bernodes and Deputy Chief Mark Fisher, and all the individual officers and the Crown Councils who refer cases to us and have the trust for us to do the work, and all our amazing volunteers we heard about tonight. But most of all, our just incredible, amazing, wonderful staff, especially this past year and a half during the pandemic, have just been outstanding, as we know they are. But first, Jillian, I would just like to say and to let everyone know that last year is Jillian's 10th anniversary with us, and it went by with the fog of the pandemic, so we didn't have the celebration and milestone marker that we should have had. So I just want to acknowledge Jillian's 10 plus years with us, and what an incredible career you have had. And not just the contributions to RJV, but to the broader RJ community, as Alan was saying, your reputation far goes beyond the shores of Vancouver Island. You're always pushing us to do better, to do more, to build more relationships. And for that, you have made us truly a leader nationally and provincially and locally. So thank you, Jillian, for all that you do. Also, Taryn, as she ran the meeting tonight, she runs everything. She has been so adaptable throughout this whole pandemic, and I don't know how we would have gotten through all of the stuff we had to adapt to without Taryn's amazing skills. So thank you for that. She keeps all the balls in the air, and she does everything to keep running smoothly. And thank you so much, Taryn. We just love having you on the team. And as you heard tonight, with our case, we're getting more and more complex every year. This work just couldn't be done without our complex case workers, Carol, Jessica, and Lane. It's an enormous amount of expertise and specialized abilities to do this work, and they're all incredibly skilled practitioners, and their insight and compassion is just amazing. We really could not take on these complex cases like Ellen has described without them. And other folks, Tynan Brower, who's on tonight and has helps us with a million technical things and has saves the day when things go kablooey. Thank you so much, Tynan. Julie Cormier for all that fantastic school-based work. And we really look forward to working with Phoebe, who's already off to a great start. And everyone who joined us here tonight and has joins us most years for our AGM. Thank you so much for your support. We are your community, you are ours, and we really look forward to when this whole pandemic's over and we can share things in person and share our stories and celebrate our work. So stay safe, be well, everyone, and enjoy the summer. We'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.